Welcome everyone to this week episode 28 entitled Many Aspire for the Astar of Mitsrayim. I'm your host, Nichel Anderson, for my podcast show, Nichel Anderson Short Stories and Beyond, for we gear up for this week and next week, which will wrap up my first season starting this podcast last fall. And if you haven't catch the last episode, just to recap on that, I've decided that my seasons are starting in the fall around September and will end in May of the following year. So as my first season one that I started 2017 to 2018, you will be able to, of course, go back and review my other podcast episodes, which I hope that you do, and I hope that you share it. Also become a member of my Patron program for this particular podcast that I'm considering premium content. This is mainly based on my production MOLIAE, which stands for Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt, based on my book called Mitsrayim that I wrote over 20 years now, over 20 something years ago that I wrote that book, and has produced several productions based on that book, Mitsrayim, a memoir. And first production was pretty much the stage play, which I entitled Moments of Love in Ancient Egypt, because of the storyline and the characters and everything really kind of evolve into the importance of your choices and the importance of finding that special one that we're meant to be. But there's a struggle and there's challenges, but you can overcome it. Getting connected both through the physical and the spiritual plane into one. But of course you have all the drama and the adventure there in MOLIAE from my book Mitsrayim. So go ahead and consider if you want to purchase that. It is available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. And this particular podcast mostly deals with that production MOLIAE, but I will focus on other stories that I'm sharing today, or recapping I should say, because I did a big rollout when I started this last year of my plans for this podcast. And the other stories is where I come up with the title of this podcast, Nichel Anderson and Beyond, meaning the stories that I will eventually write and share will be beyond the time frame of what we call ancient Egypt, Kemet, and Mitsrayim, right? So they would be modern day stories as well, because I did completed an independent film on one of my mentors, W.B. Du Bois. So I love that era when he was definitely at the height of his esteem there, where he played a role what we call the Harlem Renaissance, and that's where I got an opportunity to write about the Harlem Renaissance, and I was able to learn more about it during that time, and I just fell in love with that era. So it's usually going into the early 1920s and so forth, and years thereafter. But it was very huge in the United States, and it produced a lot of talented cultural things, from writing to art and so forth. So I definitely want to start this particular short story that I did when I was the editor of the column of the Harlem Renaissance at sweet101.com. A lot of people liked that story. I enjoyed writing it. So I'm thinking of doing that, picking that back up this summer. So again, the season for this podcast and my other podcast, Surviving Your Journey Toward Success, hopefully you subscribed to that and shared it with somebody. But pretty much the season for both of my podcasts will start in September, the first Monday, and will end the last Monday in May. So for both of my podcasts, the last normal weekly releasing of episodes will be May the 28th, Monday 2018. And then thereafter it will be bi-weekly. So pretty much there'll be 2 episodes released in a month instead of every week. And that's from the summer months. And here in the United States, summer pretty much starts in June. From June. Some people start a month early in May. But it's in June, July, and August. And then September is pretty much, to me, starting the new season. So that's the goal plan. That's pretty much how we're going to go forward. And then I'll go back doing weekly episodes. Now I'm going to release some quick information for those that's catching this episode, that I haven't really announced that I am thinking of perhaps after next season, which would be season 2, 2018 to 2019, is thereafter to try the bi-weekly approach. I know I did some research and people, well, what I read that is preferably to release a lot. But to be honest, I have a lot of projects and some things that I want to kick off. Mainly is to return back to stage. So doing stage plays, anybody that knows that business, it is very, very hectic when you go live. Not just gearing up for it, but when you actually make the announcement. I mean, it's like a spotlight. Everything is on you. You have so many time frames and dates and things, and you managing the cast and your other teams. So it's a lot to do on a span of time, and every decision that you make, this is for anybody that's listening, is thinking about doing stage. Whatever decision you make from the time you make that announcement that you're ready to go and you let the horses leave, you will know how good your decision making is at the time when it's called, and pretty much there at the start of the play and then towards the end, and then you look at everything and you could tell or that decision was made, so that kind of trickled effect. And so the last 30 days is key, but the months before is very key. So you have to be really focused. This would be the third time MOLIAE is returning back to the stage. So I'm making a huge production because, again, if you've been following these episodes, I have mentioned that these new characters that I'm rolling out, some of them will be on stage for the very first time. And also it's a celebration to me of how determined I was to bring Mitsrayim to life, to talk about it, to share it. I have some other ideas I want to take it, but for right now, the podcast is allowing me to keep it alive, to keep it on the table, and for people to learn about it, because it's very special to me. It came to me. I didn't go to it. If anybody understand what I just said. So it's that deep and spiritual for me. I just know that most people are connected from Egypt, not just based on their ethnic background or what they look like now in the moment, but just somewhere in the heart. Is there something about Egypt? Is there something about it that pulls us to it? Not getting into the politics of today, because that kind of distract from the core of the message that I'm trying to relay from those that could connect to me. It's just no matter where we are on this planet that we call Earth, there's something that pulls us to that moment of time. And so I try to write these stories that I don't get into the politics of today. I'm talking about then, that we can also learn the lessons of then, of a place that we all love and dear. And that's what we're calling today Egypt. All right, so to move on from that, to get the full short story, and I will release clips. Right? And these clips are pretty much giving you some idea what's going on, but not the full story. I do release some very good information that I don't relay in the next episode, but if you become a patron member, you also get rewards, and you can find out that information in the description. And you could go directly to my patron.com/Nichel Anderson to pick which level you want to become a member. Now, next week, the final. Again, you have to become a patron to get the full story, but I'm telling you, it is going to be worth it. I have special guests reading some lines for some characters. It's going to be something revealed about Queen Hagar, and I was surprised. So you want to get a part of that. So consider, if you haven't already, be the first or be the 10th, I don't know, but decide to do that, and you will be able to get the inside scoop of the whole story next week when it's the finale of this podcast for season 1. And then thereafter, summer months, I'm not releasing every week. It's bi-weekly, but you want to find out what's going on, right? It's very, very good. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do a recap from last week. It was featuring a clip snippet for the previous episode where we learned two things. One, Natu went bold to secure his future against Mitsrayim and those in the power of Orion Legion. 2, we learned Queen Hagar remembers more moments, but it did cut off, so you had to become a patron to be able to get the full story. Okay, so you got to kind of decide, do I really want to go for it? If I've been following her for a while and I really love what she does and it really does, I learned some things and it's inspiring, go ahead and consider to be a patron. Member of this particular podcast, go to www.patron.com/Nichel Anderson. And so in that particular clip, it did cut off and didn't go into revealing all what happened at that moment and thereafter, but it did give you enough idea that the story is progressing, that something is heating up to next week episode. Okay, so you need to find out what was revealed in the full short story, to who was behind these entrapments that led up to the war that King Mahlon seriously got hurt. What was the moment after Queen Hagar remembered the troops entering in Mitsrayim? Where does this all fit into the final episode for season 1 2017-2018 of my podcast show? You got to become a member to find out, but that's pretty much what was last week's episode. So again, I just want to thank everybody. I'm getting very excited for next week, as well as the summer break, that I get to refocus and decide on which way I want to go for next year, what other characters I want to bring in. And I'm going to still talk about before the time of Princess Amina, before she's on the scene, because once we get into that part, pretty much we're getting ready to do the stage play. So of course I got all of this mapped out in my mind to be able to roll it out while I'm doing these podcast show for new people that's coming into the realm of Mitsrayim, the realm of what I'm calling Mitsrayim MOLIAE, the production, and that they can connect more to it. So with that done and said, and again, that production of the stage play will be called The Prestige Return of MOLIAE Stage Play. So keep following me, keep following these episodes, and any future announcements when I make that call that this is a done deal, this is what it's going to be, this is where we return to stage, and the information of how you can be there for this production. All right, so let's begin for this week of my podcast show, Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond, for this week episode 28, entitled Many Aspire for the Astar of Mitsrayim. Opening scene. Deep in the land of the Sudan, that in future generations yet to come would be called the Congo, we found many tribal leaders and supporters of the High Congreto tribal members. There were 20 from the surrounding areas talking amongst themselves of the execution plan to deliver the next phase ordered by the High Congreto tribal members. It was a new shadowy hour as Kingo rays beamed down on the open stone terrace overlooking the deep forest afar. The talk was of the next move forward against Mitsrayim, and that a supporter in the alliance in securing their star mission for Mitsrayim with more precision and force. One of the tribal leaders that went by the name Winti, with a long scar on his left arm from previous battles, long before one secretly made against Mitsrayim. He started to talk of the main leader that controls the High Congreto tribal members that they serve, that perhaps more care to know more of them before making such a move against Mitsrayim. Many others disregarded such focusing, talking on that, and rather to focus on what was ordered for them to do, to spread untruths to one of the alliance, for this was what Natu traveled far to present to the leaders. Suddenly their talk ceased as someone knocked on the door. It was soldiers from the High Congreto tribal members. The door was let open for the soldiers to enter. We came, for sure you all agreed to the mission forward. One of the leader of the soldiers spoke. Winti and the others nodded in agreement. Winti was the first to respond back. We are ready. One of the leader of the soldiers spoke. Then you all must leave at once for your people to attest and begin the next move against Mitsrayim. There are horses waiting for you. They all nodded, Winter was about to move as well, but again felt to bring up that more should be focused on the who and why. He reached for one of his dear trusted friends, a fellow tribal leader that was from the southeastern region of the Sudan. Surely we should not care in this matter, if not to know if the seeds leads back to us or to them, for we are not as strong as the great Mitsrayim to conquer. Winty hesitated, looking at his friend for some wisdom to perhaps step back for what they were about to do. His friend shook his head. No, Noto, not to be concerned of what is not here. We have the alliance deep in our side of the Sudan. This future moment will be a winning victory against the crown of Mitsrayim. We will gain the Astar, as they promise, with our allegiance. Hesitant, Winty finally nodded in agreement. He also left with the others to their mission that would start the trail of untruths on another within the mission for Astar of Mitsrayim. Five days later, meanwhile in Mitsrayim, in the king's chambers, it is King Mahlon that just was briefed from Tahib and Tesna, along with his secret king's guards, of recent movement to the southeast of Kongeto, unusually to those that watch for Mitsrayim. King Mahlon continued to listen to them as a secret knock indicated by King Mahlon's guard that someone would enter that were just cleared by them. It was Comrade Data entering with both a message and something found in the last trail not far from where the Mitsrayim spies discovered an object of interest, not predominantly used in that region, near the first battle leading to the war. General Comrade Data revealed a rolled-up papyrus form from an old ally of King Mahlon of Mitsrayim. King Mahlon read the message written in ancient Sumerian and Akkadian language. It revealed a message decoded by only the king of Mitsrayim. King Mahlon read it. Iknatu nafa wesekana King Mahlon sevena heba nafawala ilatis. Translation: Anew, my good friend King Mahlon. This was found near the last outbreak of the war by those against thee for you. King Mahlon continued to read what was written before him. This concludes this week clip snippet for this episode. If you would like to listen to the full story, please visit my Patron page. The information will be in the below description. Thank you again. Of this podcast, Nichel Anderson, Short Stories and Beyond. I will release only the clippet of the short story, and once you become a patron, you will have access to the full short story, what's going on next, and I do plan to release more director clip notes as well as a bonus of releasing a story. Thank you again for joining my podcast this week. So long.